Our next speaker is Dr. Sharon Mascall-Dare, an award-winning journalist, broadcaster, author, and current reservist who helped hundreds of veterans to share their stories during her 30-year career. In 2017, on her return from operational service in Iraq, she founded Storyright. You can find that at www.storyright.org. On the subject of peer work and programs, Storyright, empowering veterans through narrative, please welcome Dr. Sharon Mascall-Dare.
First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge Dr. John Lane and the Road Home for the opportunity to have allowed me to train as a peer-to-peer counsellor as part of the STARE programme. Frankly, when I got back from Iraq 2.5 years ago now, I was not in a great place, and working with John, Karen and the rest of the team gave me the confidence and the opportunity to be able to continue to leverage my skills in a way where I could give back to the veteran community. So I'm immensely grateful to John, Karen and the rest of the team. So, Storyright. Well, what's interesting with Storyright is John talked about how the natural follow-on from the STARE program out of the US was for there to be a form of narrative therapy. And Storyright, in its own way, does exactly that. Our mission is to empower veterans one story at a time. In a nutshell, Storyright is a one-day workshop where we enable veterans who may have gone through STARE or indeed through GEARS, which John will be running here next year in Adelaide and elsewhere, to be able to translate their military skills so that the civilian world can understand who they are, what they bring, and essentially that wealth of experience, lived experience that they can bring to civilian life, particularly with a view to gaining employment or study opportunities. And you don't need me to tell you that it is absolutely intrinsic to the health and well-being arena that people feel valued and that they feel they have a purpose. So enabling veterans to be able to get out there after their experience, to be able to leverage their skills in a way that is meaningful for them, whether that be through employment, study, volunteering, community engagement. Essentially what we do at Storyright in our one-day workshop is give them the skills to be able to translate their military experience to achieve that goal. In addition, therefore, to giving them the skills training during the day, essentially training in communication and presentation skills, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment, we're also a gateway where we have a vast network, not only of employers, but of other community groups that we work in alliance with, including the Road Home and other ex-service organisations, where we can then refer people on so that what they've done with us in terms of developing that personal narrative, that personal story, they then have somewhere to take that story and do something with it that's productive and meaningful for them. And we're also essentially trying to leverage some media relationships as part of a campaign that we've launched to try to shift the national narrative around veteran employment. As many of you would be only too aware, there are a lot of cliches out there, a lot of assumptions, and we're trying to challenge some of those things head on, primarily by giving veterans the skills, the opportunity, and the contacts to be able to tell their story on their terms and not have others tell their story for them. Who are we? Well, our team at Storyright, we're 20 like-minded veterans, and we're growing all the time because the way we work is we have a management team, we have an advisory board, but what's important is that when a veteran has come to one of our workshops, we then offer everyone the opportunity, if they wish, to continue to work with us as a mentor, so they can then come back to subsequent workshops and be in the room and then assist other veterans who are going through a similar transition and also wanting help with regard to their translation of skills. And then also we keep an eye open to identify talent in terms of veterans that come to us that would be well suited to themselves be facilitators in that peer-to-peer model. And when we do train people up, We actually enable those veterans once they've completed their training, and the format we use is participate, observe, co-facilitate, then facilitate independently. And once they get to that stage, we have a business structure where we're able to pay people the industry rate for a full day's facilitation duty. So not only are we empowering veterans through taking control of their own narrative to gain employment or gain opportunity, we're also creating employment for veterans who might wish to go down that path of learning facilitation skills and being able to use that themselves as a professional skill. We started in South Australia, but there's now interest in our workshops nationally. So RSL Queensland came down to see what we do early this year. Our first workshop will be running in Brisbane on the 21st of April next year. And we also have New South Wales and state government sending someone over to our final workshop of the year, which will be next Friday, the 15th of November, with a view to taking it over to New South Wales. We've also run workshops in Darwin this year as well. So we've been very small. We've only been going for about 18 months in terms of running our workshops, but we are growing. So our formula is very simple. It's very much about creating that safe, nurturing environment where people are not only given skills, but they're given opportunity to be able to express themselves and experiment with these new ways of thinking about who they are, what they've lived through, what they can contribute in the civilian world in a way where they're going to feel fully supported. And what we tend to do is in the morning we look at some theoretical work. We tend to focus a lot on audience analysis, thinking about, well, how might your target civilian employer for your dream job, how might they view you? What are their expectations? What are their triggers? How might you tailor your language to be able to achieve the objective you want of a job opportunity, for example? And then in the afternoon, after having done some individualised translation work, we then move on to developing a personal profile, which can be used at the top of a CV or resume, or indeed as a LinkedIn profile. And we also offer some interview training. And what's really interesting that we note time and again is when the guys and girls come into the room at the beginning of the day, sometimes they've come to us from the Soldier Recovery Centre at Edinburgh, sometimes they've just heard about us through the Diggernet, sometimes they've just seen maybe one of our Facebook posts and they've registered to come along, and they'll come into the room and they'll be a little bit reticent and thinking, what the hell is this? Or my chain of command has sent me here, do I really have to be here today? And what can you guys teach me? Who the hell are you? And then what's interesting is then by about 11 o'clock, you kind of sort of see this light bulb moment and they're thinking, right, I get it. Okay, this is not a waste of time. And then by the end of the day, sometimes then the people who are most resistant are coming up and saying, hey, this is awesome, can I train up to be a facilitator? And we've had that happen a number of times recently. So, but we welcome everyone and we work with everyone as best we can individually. We create a really positive environment, and so far our results have been really positive. Okay, so what's our theoretical foundation? Well, essentially, before I got involved with the Army myself as an Army officer, I've worked in the media for many years, but I've also studied media, and in my civilian life, in order to pay my mortgage and feed my kids, because believe me, journalism doesn't pay that well, I have been running communication workshops for many years, and essentially drawing on a range of methodologies from communication studies, communication theory. But what I found, and this was the beauty of the work that I did with John and the Road Home, is I already had a concept for Storyright that I developed while I was in Iraq, largely as a result, frankly, of a number of soldiers coming to my office and saying, hey, you're the public affairs officer, you're usually a reservist, how the hell do I get out of here and get a job? Can you get me a job once we get back from Iraq? So although I had the will there and I could see the potential, the beauty was of working with John on the Road Home is I had the opportunity to study counselling and psychotherapy at the University of Adelaide. And then I had my own light bulb moment when I realised that Storyright essentially is really grounded in strengths-based CBT and also narrative therapy. Now, I'm very careful about that because that's not what we claim to do, and certainly I'm not going to make any aspersions that I'm some kind of specialist in those areas, because I've still got an enormous amount to learn. But certainly there is the potential over time for Storyright to evolve in that area. So we're very clear, we're not offering a therapeutic solution. What we are offering, though, is personal and professional development, and certainly there is some strong theoretical work that backs up some of the methodologies that we use. And interestingly, next year, we've been fortunate enough to get a DVA grant where we're going to be working with Dr. Paula Dabovich from the University of Adelaide to develop a complementary workshop called Mind Rights, which is about shifting your mindset in preparation for civilian employment. And that's based and grounded in her PhD research around shifts in identity. So I'm just going to renew this figure because I submitted these slides last week. We actually trained another 20 people in Storyright just Monday this week down at Flinders University as part of their military academic pathways programme. And I'm still glad to say that of all of our now 95 graduates, we have had a 100% satisfaction rate. So I like to think we're doing something right, but the beauty is we retain a strong commitment to feedback and the iterative process of truly engaging our graduates in the process of making what we do and what we're trying to achieve as best as it can possibly be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sharon, telling us about Storyright, empowering veterans one story at a time.